Hi guys, welcome to the bench, working on the build of the Zvezda IS-2 Soviet Heavy Tank. So I said in the introduction, this is a snap together or a no glue required kit, and you notice first thing I have on my desk is some thin cement. I will be using thin cement, and at the moment the very first step is the construction of this turret, just a few pieces that go together, and I'll show you how that looks. It's see straight away that it's a bit of a compromise because pieces need to be push fitted together, and then there's going to be these seam lines that you get, and they're going to detract from the finished appearance if you're wanting a nice finish to your model, and if you're going to paint it as a snap together kit that you're just going to use it as a display piece or something, or nearly sort of like a toy, I think that's fine. But we're going to go a little bit beyond that. I mean, like to paint them and finish them reasonably well. So I'm going to run a bead of cement through there, and actually I'm going to use the thin cement throughout on this build, really, because what can happen is pieces can come loose, and maybe during the weathering process as well, you can get a problem where the parts start to separate. I had that before on Bandai kits, and also I did find out that the barrel actually, it did need to be drilled out because the attachment point of the sprue was right on the end. That's easy, no problems, everything fits together. And then I started on the lower hull. I wanted to get to grips with these tracks that I'd heard that there were some problems with, and I'm just going to show you the instruction phase. Basically, what they tell you to do is extremely difficult to do in reality. Okay, the first step is quite forward, adding in these drive sprockets and bits and pieces, yeah. But here, this is where things get really complicated. What I'll show you on this side here, what I've had to do, this part here, C29, it's meant to be somehow balanced in between there while you run the track in and then secure it with the first part of the return roller. Now, trying to balance all that together and push it together is nigh on impossible, really. So what I've done is I've taken that part. I'll show you how small that part is as well. It's this little guy here. Oh, it's even so small it's going down my hand, but you can just see it there. That is part of the securing parts, and what I've done, I've glued two of them onto the lower, like the mounting points for that return roller, because I need to keep them in position. And on this side, it was really tricky actually to get that track on. The first problem that you run into is that they've made these I mean, fair play, they have made this sprocket really nice and detailed, but the teeth itself are obviously very fragile, and you need to get them to go through the track, and they do bend because they are delicate. Yeah, so getting the track around the teeth is one of the first problems, and then secondly is pushing in the securing pin, which is the other half of the return roller, and it's small obviously in 72 scale, but the real issue is this, in that when you try to push these pins through, plastic's quite delicate and you're putting pressure on it, you're putting stress on it, and what will tend to happen is that you're either going to bend the pin or the pin's not going to fit. So it's a compromise. They had to work out a solution on making this a true, without glue kit. But the difficulty is when you've got this track mechanism, it is a bit complex. So on this side, I'm doing the same again. I'm securing these on with cement, and then you put on the road wheels, or the torsion bar drop arms, and then the road wheels, wrap around the track around that sprocket, and I've secured it with two of these. This third one here is quite tight to fit, and I'm having trouble with getting it aligned properly. So what I might do on that one is actually just chop off the pin and just glue it on top. It won't look too bad. It is actually, I don't think it has got a sagged effect, but the track is okay. At least it's not bulging up. It is sitting, and the actual appearance of it is not too bad. I'm just going to show you something as well. I mean, that is, you know, one of the drawbacks of one of these snap together. Rather, it's meant to be a simplistic kit, but the actual way of doing that is really tricky. Actually, I can imagine a lot of people just giving up when they try to do that because it's so fiddly. And I'm just going to show you as a comparison. Okay, another manufacturer here. So this is a glue together kit, and the solution to the tracks there, you can see them in the bag. It's actually just to use lengths of track. I'll show you in the instructions for this kit, but really you can just see there what they do is they have lengths and pieces, and then just a few individual links. It all gets glued solidly to form that, and that's really a lot easier than trying to manipulate this in this example. But anyways, I mean, we're going to proceed onwards. We're going to run some cement across there, get that bonded, and then I'm going to show you how to actually create a bit of texture on there just using liquid cement and to eliminate those seams. But I'll just show you quickly. I mean, this is really how things fit together. You just need to just push. I've just damaged the handle. Just push them on like so, and that's it. I mean, really straightforward, those bits, but the tracks are a bit of a handful, but we'll proceed and we'll get this built up for you. Okay, just getting to the final stages on this build. We had some real trouble with the tracks, I have to admit. You can see that actually this road wheels, the return roller is kind of distorted because I had to use a lot of pressure to try and push that pin in. Didn't work, so I cut off the pin in the end, and I've just sort of cemented it on. You can see something else that's happening now. One side, actually both sides. Okay, let's have a look at this. What we've got now is we've got the track, and it's not conforming to the road wheels, and because of the lightness of this model, it's going to be springing up and down. So to solve that, what we're going to do, we're going to put a bit of cement into that track run, and then place it onto, obviously a flat surface, and then we're going to use something of some weight to sort of press down on it while that glue sets. So we'll do that, and we'll obviously let that work for a couple of hours. I've basically finished off the upper deck. That's the deck of the tank with all the details have been added on. I've got one fuel tank to do. I'm just going to show you that. This is something that's pretty good about these snap together kits, in that the fuel tank is a single cylinder, so there's no join line as such, and then the ends are likewise, and they're actually notched so that they can sort of only assemble one way, and the location is really quite positive when you push them into position. I'll just put the other side on just to show you that. But these you should see it would be nice to see more of this in a normal kit where you don't need to worry about seam line. You can see the join's really good there. If I get it in shot, that is. Yeah, it's really good all the way around. There's no seam line. That's a really good piece of detail, that, you know. And then this slips into here like so. I use a drop of liquid cement. Like I said, I'm using liquid cement to secure everything and to try to eliminate any join lines. And with that done, basically we can join the upper and lower hull. This upper deck had this transient piece inside that will clip onto there. Prior to doing that, sorry, I need to take out this bit. This locks the turret into position. Now, you actually do need that. You need that piece underneath to lock that in. It's showing it. I would rather not see that, but that's the way it's done, so we'll do that. The MG is assembled. That's a nice bit of detail. That it's really well done. You know, it's really nicely detailed. I'll show you the instructions. I'll show you the error they made. It would not assemble as per the instructions, and I'll tell you why. Okay, the way they made it is that this portion here, which is the sight and one of the handles, has to push fit into a hole located into the main HMG assembly. Well, that hole doesn't exist, so you have to snap that off and then glue it together. It's the only way to get it together. The rear tow cable, it's very delicate. The location's very good with the push fit mountings, and I've snapped it off, obviously by accident, and that will be reattached later on. I've got these further details, which are the turret grab handles and some lifting hooks for the turret. Those are the optional parts that are called out on the instruction here. It says you can fix some additional parts with the help of glue for plastic kits. So we're definitely going to add on those detailed parts. It actually included that, the horn as well, the driver's horn. And then everything should be completed. So I'll just give you, this is the sort of final bit of, you know, explanation. I don't think there's anything else that complex. Well, there was nothing really that complex in this build anyways. But we'll come back and look at the finished model pretty soon. Hi guys, I said I was going to show you the finished model, and I totally forgot that I was going to show you some techniques. First one I'm going to show you is a way that makes it easier to paint these models. When we got the painting stage on this one, we're going to use really basic techniques, but we're going to use a spray can for the primer. So we need to hold the model in a way that's quite easy to manipulate without the spray going all over your hands or clothes and bits and pieces. So what I've done, I've taken the hull and I've used a pin vise to open up some holes in the bottom of the hull. This is where obviously you can't see the model. And then I've got some of this malleable wire. It's wire that you can get from DIY stores, etc. You can use flower wire, or you can use this. I think this is used to hold parts when you solder them. Anyway, it's just some thin wire that's easy to bend. And we'll cut it off to, you know, fairly good length. And all we do is thread one end through, then the other. Push that all the way through. Then at the end, just twist it a couple of times. And that actually, you can see for a 72 scale, that is fine just to hold the model while we paint it. Now the second thing is we're going to apply something that's going to alleviate that seam that we had on the turret. And we're using this product called Mr. Surfacer 500, which is it's actually a primer and and also like a texture. It's from Mr. Hobby, and I think there are similar there's similar products, but this is the most common one that you'll come across. But you can actually make this yourself by using liquid cement and adding just shavings of plastic styrene, and this is great for covering up small seams, but in our case it's going to do two jobs. I've added a bit of the thinner. You're going to need the thinner with this. This is Mr. Colour Thinner 250, or you can use the leveling thinner, and added that on top, so it's a bit liquidy. The other thing you're going to need is like the cheapest brush you have. I would recommend getting something like some, like kids basic colouring sort of set or something. I rather nasty. I stole this off my 4-year-old daughter. I could see that she wasn't using it, but you can see it's a really poor brush. It's like a nylon brush, really sort of poor quality, and for our purposes that's going to help us. And what we're doing, I'll show you. I've already done one side at the moment. I added on the grab handles as well. They were cemented in place, those sort of detail points, and you can see there's like a layer on top of one side. On the other side you can still see there's that big seam there that you can focus in on, but on the other side it's more or less gone. Maybe you can see it a little bit, but let's call it a weld seam now, not like a joining parts. And there's like a little bit of a rougher texture on there, and I'll show you how that's done. You can also, if you're interested, you can also use liquid cement, and you can just add all that all over the surface, and it softens the plastic. And then if you've got sort of like a metal wire brush, you can dimple it. But in this scale, really, this is probably the easier way to do this. So just dip this brush into this mixture. Get a thickish sort of amount of it, but not too heavy. And then, let's see if we can get this. See, I'll show you how to do this. Okay, just add the liquid, and you're going to have to let it dry a little bit, to be honest, until it. Try and avoid the upper part of the turret, because the turret roof will be smooth, but the sides where all the armour is a thick cast texture. Just apply it on, apply it around those whole lifting points and those handles. And then what you're doing is, we'd have to wait a while, but I'll just show you a demonstration. You're taking the brush and you're stippling it to create a texture. Now on this scale it doesn't have to be, overdone, but maybe if you exaggerate it, you're going to get the effect. You're going to sort of call out that rough cast texture that the Russian tanks, or the Soviet World War II tanks, so typically displayed. But more importantly as well, you can see that join there is nearly gone now. So just show you that. That's basically everything in terms of the build. I'm going to really try and go straight into the painting this week, but I'll come back and I'll show you the finished model, and we'll have a little look around it, and I'll give you a bit of a critique on my thoughts, but I'm enjoying it so far. Okay, so the actual build is complete. That was it. This is everything. I'll show you what it looks like with the turret on, which is, just lost the heavy machine gun. I'm keeping this as 3 sub-assemblies for painting, and I'll explain. It may cause some difficulties. The turret has to snap fit onto there, but we're not going to do that. Once that goes on, it ain't going to come off. Well, probably it will do, but you're going to more likely to break anything. The actual join of that, the hull top to the bottom of the hull was really good. Surprisingly with this kit, the areas where I thought there was going to be problems, there actually wasn't any. The tracks were, I was told they were too short and they wouldn't reach round. That wasn't the problem. It was just the difficulty of that assembly to trap the track in between those return rollers. But in the end, we got there and it looks okay. You can see that the track's really firm against there by applying that cement into the road wheels and using some weight to compress it. So that looks good. The details in here are really nice actually. All the little pieces, they've all been cemented on to keep them firm. Yeah, there's even a little horn there that was added. These fuel tanks I thought were great. That way, you know, there's no seams on them at all. They've got the Pioneer saw there, the toolbox. The rear deck is excellent detail with that louver. That's actually a real louver. I did snap the rear recovery chain, so I've sort of cemented that into place, and that's still going off to set at the moment. I think I showed you this before, but I'll show you again because I like it so much. It's the HMG is really well detailed. That's a really nice fine part. Okay, the turret still is drying, but now you can see the textures sort of coming alive on there. You can see what's happened. That seam's basically gone on there. Well, you can still see a bit of it, but we can go back and add some putty or leave it as it is. This side is a lot better, sort of a bit rough just by stippling it. When you need to clean off your brush, just dip it into some solvent. Yeah, the same stuff that Mr. Hobby thinner. Yeah, I'll show you something that's what I've done. I'm planning ahead already for the painting, so I've got those sort of three pieces: the HMG, the turret, and the hull. And the reason is when we go on to paint this, these white operational stripes, they're going to take some masking, or we may use the decals. I think we will mask, to be honest. It's going to be it could be difficult using the decals, or we might even just hand paint. That could even be the best solution there, but regardless, we'll keep the turret separate while we do at least the priming. But when we come to painting, we'll probably have that together. So really, sum up, it's quite a good kit. I wonder what a beginner would really make of this. I mean, I'm experienced in building plastic models, and I thought this was really overly complex. They had to have a solution on how to get that track to fit. Everything else though is really nice on here. I think it's really good. They did a really good job, and the actual end result is a really quite nicely detailed model. So I'm really looking forward to painting this one. So we'll continue on, and we'll approach it, you know, like all the way through like a beginner. But the only sort of next investment is a tinner primer, spray paint primer, and some paint, some acrylic paints. But we'll get on the next and see you in the next one.